So, hi, Darcy Myers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to talking to you about your new book and other things that you have going on. And so, as we go through this dialogue, I will, just kind of keep us on track. But I'm really hoping this is going to be more about you talking and not me. So, but I will start us off with a little, just a mention of who you are for our audience. So, Darcy is a poet, a Buddhist chaplain, and a somatic therapist. And she is the author of the recently published The Marvelous Contentment of Belonging: Poetry, Prose, and Prompts for Navigating Grief. And she also happens to be my neighbor here in Crestone. So, Darcy, you've been through a big journey since I've known you, like so much. And I guess I wonder if you want to just share a bit of the background of, what brought you here, keeping in mind, like, we need the sort of shorter version, given our time frame. But how did you get to be the author of this book?
Yeah. It is a long story, but essentially, my late husband, Bob, died in December of 2022. And that was really what inspired this book. For me, writing has always been a way for me to digest my life and process life experience and have more clarity and connection to something much bigger. And writing really became my ally through the grief journey. And over the last 3 years, that has really had my attention. And I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity actually to tend my grief. Not all of us take the time or have the opportunity to take time. And it was one of those things that I knew the depth of our love and our connection warranted this time of really stopping life and tending to my inner world and tending to this loss. And of course, any loss that we experience often brings up all of our past losses as well. So I got to revisit some unfinished grief and from my past as well. And that really is what formed and what created this book. And it really is about my journey, but it's also an invitation for readers to take that pause themselves and begin to contemplate their own losses through the series of questions and prompts at the end.
Yeah. And I love how you've structured the book so that it is poetry. There is, something intangible, something sort of, on that edge between life and death. It really brings us to that point because of the poetry. But then there are also practical aspects of it. And what I find so interesting is that probably you, of anyone I know, is the most qualified person to go through something like this because of your background with the work that you've done. And I wonder if you want to just share a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I have worked in end-of-life care for many years. I'm currently in private practice, supporting people through grief and other transformative journeys. But I worked in hospice and palliative care for about 15 years. I was also the founding director of a spiritual care center, Buddhist spiritual care center in southwestern Ireland for the grieving and the dying. And I've had many, many losses myself, from a very early age all the way through my life with family members, friends, tragic losses, violent losses. So there's been a lot in life that has called me to this threshold personally and asked me to really meet this experience. And I think in some ways that meeting has helped me to be a guide for others who are also exploring this very unknown terrain, because certainly in our culture, we do not have good models of grieving. We probably read in the book, that the typical bereavement leave in this country is 3 days for people who have a kind of a stable job, right? You can't even plan a funeral in 3 days. So people do need support in navigating the terrain and the landscapes of grief because it's unknown. We don't see it culturally well.
Well, and we don't acknowledge it. I mean, not only can we not see, what happens. And, if you haven't gone through it before, you don't know what happens to you. But obviously, you don't know, what's happened to your loved one. But we don't acknowledge it. We don't talk about it. And we don't want it to be part of the conversation, really.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. So this is an invitation to have that conversation, as hard as it is. And there are gifts, really, when we can face those things that we think we can't handle or tolerate, and to find a level of depth within our own selves, but resource and also connection to something bigger. I write a lot about, we live in this beautiful sacred valley and, wide open spaces. And the animate world here was a huge support for me through this, through the grieving, going through the seasons with my grief of what it was like to be in deep winter, what it was like as spring was beginning to slowly happen. And I could slow down long enough to be with those subtle changes and be with my internal experience and how it might be mirrored in the natural world and how it wasn't. Like when spring came along and I wasn't ready for the sun, to be in relationship with the sun. I wanted to stay indoors. I wanted to stay in the winter of grief because that matched what it felt like on the inside.
Right. Right. So do you want to share a bit about the book and maybe read a poem or whatever portion you would like to?
Sure. Well, the book is organized by the 4 seasons as I was going through the seasons of grief. And there's poetry, kind of free verse poetry, prose, more structured form like haiku and sonnet. And it was a way for me to just play with structure that could hold the experience, really. And as I said, in the end, then there's an invitation for others as well to contemplate their grief. And there's kind of a progression, I would say, through the book where there's a lot of raw, open, honest, heartbreaking words in the early part of the book, when then we start to kind of transition to a little more hope or a little more spaciousness, a little more kind of as summertime is coming along, possibility, hope, and a lot of transformation and what it's like to be at the threshold also when there's a lot of magic happening in those places where the veils are thin, and being able to connect to something bigger, something, let's say, more transpersonal or spiritual. So I think I'll read, since we're in summertime. This is a poem that's in summer. It's called So Much Depends Upon the Sun. I awoke early today, life's labors insistent, trying to make claim on my day. Alone, lying in bed, I wait and watch the early morning blue silver light slowly warm to pink orange, hopeful sky, framed by the mountains to the east. So much depends upon the sun. I could choose gratitude for the light that dawns day after day, gratitude for my sight when those I love are losing theirs. Gratitude for a cozy bed with a view, even alone. I could choose gratitude and rise with the sun, thankful for warm peony breath, the cat's purr. But I linger a little longer, thinking of you, inclined to mythify, missing you as I do. I remember comfort in the wild places, the texture of life suddenly simple. I am reacquainted with a life without you every morning. Still, I could choose gratitude, even while living the brevity of being. Gratitude for the tenacious tendrils of memory that keep me connected to you. I could continue to choose gratitude. And if I do, I will not lose those memories of you. I gain soft pink perception that eases the sharp edges of loss. The Bodhi breath that flows through clouds breathes my lungs. I could choose gratitude. And today I do.
Wow, I can't speak. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There were a lot of moments like that, just kind of waiting, just
Yeah.
being with present moment as it was unfolding through natural world, through my own internal experience, and through memory, through grief, the things that connect us. And I have a reference in there about my family. I have 2 family members who are going blind with macular degeneration, and all those things that connect us to one another. We grieve because we love. We grieve because we're connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And what I also love about your book is that you don't just stay in one feeling tone. Like there is some, like your indignation. I love this one. I don't know if it's appropriate to read in public, but I don't know.
I haven't read it yet in public, but I would be happy to.
You want to read it? I love this one.
Okay. It does give you a flavor of what grief is like.
Yeah.
Okay. And this came along in winter, very soon after Bob died. And one of the things I'll say about that is, grief takes whatever time it takes, and it doesn't always look like we think it might look. And anger certainly is one of those stages of grief that we have to pass through, and sometimes many, many times. Today's grief, indignation, it says, fuck you, speaking to no one in particular, and to everyone and everything at the same time. Fuck you to the lymphoma that took his vitality and light, took him from my life. Fuck you to all the business of death, the filing of death certificates, the phone calls to utilities and agencies and banks saying one more time, he died. Fuck you to the non-acknowledgement of death, of the unfurling of loss through every part and particle of me, of love, of life. Fuck you even to the I'm so sorry for your loss again. Well, so am I. The indignation of grief speaks.
Yeah, that one. I mean, they all have a little gut punch at the end.
Many do.
Yeah.
And a little hope and a little possibility and a lot of love and a lot of love.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And these are the things we don't often talk about, right? The harder things.
Yeah. And so I was going to ask, this is one of my this is sort of I have a 5-step question process here. Why is this important? I think we just answered that, but if you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly my hope is that it will invite people into a deeper relationship with their own grief. And I feel like this is incredibly important because not only are we all face our own individual losses, some more than others, but we face a lot of collective losses as well. I mean, we see this on the world stage. We have climate change, we have wars, we have things that we are being brought into through media that in demand kind of an attention that requires an ability to grieve, because otherwise, where does that go? And my hope is through learning how to navigate grief, we find freedom. We find freedom. We get to be fully, fully human in this life. And we find that we can navigate those deep waters when we think we're going to drown and we don't. And that we build resiliency and a capacity to be with things, because I don't think it's ending anytime soon. Right? We're all headed the same direction in this life. And certainly have to navigate death for ourselves one day. And this is also a way of preparing for that, is learning how to navigate these deep waters.
Yeah. Can you give an example of how you invite people to do that in the book?
Yeah,
Or,
there's some questions.
or in your work?
Yeah. I think, number one is having the inclination to attend to our inner environment, to stop, right? We have to have a willingness to say, okay, what do I feel? What do I need? Right? And so much life is externally focused that brings us outward to the doing of things. And this is an invitation to the being. So a lot of the questions are that kind of, inward facing, inward looking, what is here? How can I tend to my inner world and what is needed? And learning to trust our humanness, that these feelings, good, bad, and ugly, all of it, whatever it is, that they are normal. We've been taught in our culture somehow as adults, we're not supposed to express those things. And yet, this is a part of what it's like to be human. And how can we fully engage with this life? And I don't know about you, but I'm here, and I trust I'm here for a reason. And I want to engage this experience fully. I don't want to miss any of it, even the heartbreak, because it's a demonstration of our love. So that's the invitation. Can we look more deeply inward? And then some of the questions at the end are just ways to do that, ways we can explore that for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a portal. It's an invitation to a new room, a new vista.
Yeah. And those two questions I often will give clients. What do I feel? What do I need? Times we're not quite sure of what we're feeling. And so we're not sure of how to meet a need in us, right? Like, what is the thing that is wanting expression and to be met there, And I think those are two really simple but worthy questions to explore.
Yeah, well, and you bring up a good point, because I think there is a fear, but there is a real risk to expressing or tapping into these feelings and not being met. And that is an overwhelming place, or can be an overwhelming place. And so this invitation to identify what we feel and what we need, it sort of requires that there be a someone or a something, some sort of container to meet us. And yeah, to me, that's kind of what this book provides.
Yeah, that's certainly my hope. And to also open to the possibility that support is all around us all the time. And it might not be human support.
Right.
I had my feline creatures with me, through this grieving process, which was really helpful because they were grieving too.
Yeah.
I had the desert sky, the changing sky, the heat of summertime. I had the, sharpness of the mountains. I had this strength of the mountains. I had all this to support me and companion me in my grief. I might not have noticed that hadn't I stopped, taken a look, asked for help, been with the thing that was unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and it's just inspiring to watch the gracefulness with which you've navigated this. It's it's a role modeling in a sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will say it was not always graceful.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As I'm, angry, as I'm sad, as I'm going through the full gamut of emotions here, kind of on my own. And I did have great support too from friends and people bringing meals and, checking in, sending me little poems or heart emojis, and knowing that I'm, being held by a larger network, as well, and of support was really helpful. And I will say, grief does not look graceful most of the time.
Right.
It just happens to land in this way now because I
Yeah.
moved
Well,
through it.
but that's the point. I mean, you have to go through the whole process. And it's like getting to this in a weird, I mean, I can't, it's a question maybe. Does it feel like a turning point in your grief process?
Absolutely. There was something that happened. You know, I was when I was first writing and I was just in the grief. There was no plan to publish anything. And then it became really clear to me last year, like I need to birth this into the world and be of service in some way from what I've been through. And this completion of the book happened around summer solstice this year. And, you know, Bob died around winter solstice, and it felt like this sort of fruition of this experience coming into form. And there, I felt a shift in my grief process. Mm-hmm. Things have changed. I'm certainly not in the acute stage of grief at all. Mm-hmm. Still missing. Still there's longing. Still there's all the things. But I'm in a very, very different place and feeling the energy of summer. Like I'm open to it now. I'm open to new beginnings. I'm open to new connections in a way that I wasn't before, to being out in the world talking about grief. I probably couldn't have done this, you know, before in the same way.
Right. Okay. Well, we evolve.
We do. Yeah. Even when we think we won't, or maybe especially when we think we won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people learn more or find you if they want to work with you or have some resources for their own grieving process?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website, which is just darcymyers.com. And there's a way to reach me there. There's information on the book. There's also information on a course that I'm starting this fall, although I might start in the spring, just kind of waiting to see how things land with all the book activities. And it's called Tending Grief. And it's a 6-week program in each of the seasons. 6 weeks in a row, and it's a live virtual program where we will be exploring grief, our own, and learning that turning inward, learning how to tend our inner experience together in community, utilizing poetry from the book, other poetry, and the prompts as an invitation for people through writing and creativity to explore their own grief, and even inviting in other creative pursuits as well, because we all process differently and have different ways, things that attract us. You know, writing might not be a thing for everyone. It might be painting, might be something else altogether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your book, The Marvelous Contentment of Belonging, is available where?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble online, all brick and mortar bookstores, although you may have to ask them to order it, but it is available.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I have one other short poem I could read.
Sure.
Great. It's called In Love. Love beckons us to risk it all, to extend fearlessly into the wide, open world, softened into the subtle shroud of light's early attention to sky. The slow illumination gives way to bright, and then, eventually, to waning light, soon to be the dark night. In love, the end is always present at the beginning.
Yeah. Wise words there.
Mm. Yeah. And to be willing to do it anyway.
To do it anyway, to dive in.
That's what we're gonna, but love. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your words, your presence with us, and for being a beacon for those who might be going through their own loss right now. And I wish you all success with the book and
Thank you so much.
the onward journey.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you do in bringing these conversations forward. It's an inspiration for me to see how you really put your work out into the world. And I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone who joined. We appreciate you being here. It's always nice to have an audience to speak to. So thank you, everyone. And please check out Darcy's book. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.